Dhyayantu Mangani Vaktanashchakshushotra Atavindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahmopanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuyam Mama Brahma Nirakaro Anirakarnam me astu Anirakarnam me astu Tadatmani Nirate Upanishad Dharma Ste Mai Santu Te Mai Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all my limbs grow strong, so also my breath, my speech, eyes, ears, and all my organs. All is Brahman, of which the Upanishads speak. May I never turn away from Brahman. May Brahman never turn me away. Let there be no turning away at least on my side. I am engaged in the study of the self. The Upanishads speak of qualities that one must possess to succeed in such a study. May I acquire those qualities. Om peace, peace, peace. So we're going to, we've gotten up to section 4, the final section of the book, and we will be finishing it tonight. And so let me just read through what we've covered so far. Altogether, there's only about 35 verses in the Upanishads. So the disciple, by whose will is the mind drawn towards its objects? Who makes the vital breath, the first sign of life, function? Ordained by whom do people utter words? Which God directs the eye, the ear, and the other organs? Teacher, it, Brahman, is the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech, the breath of the breath, and the eye of the eye. Therefore the wise, giving up the notion that they are associated with these organs, depart from this world and become immortal. The eye does not reach there, nor does speech, nor the mind. We do not know how a teacher can possibly explain it to a disciple. We do not know. That Brahman is different from all known, familiar objects. It is beyond even unknown objects. This is what we heard from the ancient ones who explained it to us. Know that alone to be Brahman, which cannot be described by speech, and by which speech becomes a vehicle of expression. It is not this sense world that people worship. Know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot see by the eyes, and by the power of which the eyes see. It, Brahman, is not this sense world that people worship. Know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot hear by the organ of hearing, and by the power of which the ear can hear. It, Brahman, is not this sense world that people worship. Know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot make an object of smelling by the nose, and by the power of which the nose smells or functions. It is not this sense world that people worship. So here is the first section of the Canon of Upanishad. Now section 2 says, if you think, I know Brahman well, then it is for certain that you know little about the nature of Brahman. You know only its manifestation in the individual self, the gods, and the phenomenal world. Therefore, Brahman should still be thoroughly investigated. Disciple, I think it is known. I do not think that I know it well, neither is it that I do not know, nor can I say I know. He who among us disciples knows the meaning of the expression, neither is it that I do not know, nor can I say I know, knows that Brahman. He who says he does not know Brahman knows it. He who says he knows does not know it. It is known to those who say they do not know it. It is not known to those who say they know it. When one attains Brahman, at all levels of one's consciousness, one attains true knowledge, and one goes beyond life and death. By self-knowledge, one attains strength. By true knowledge, one attains immortality. If one knows the self as Brahman in this very life, one then knows the supreme truth. Without this knowledge, one is doomed to much suffering. But the wise person who knows this truth, that Brahman is in all things and all beings, withdraws from this world and becomes free. So here is the second section of the Kena Upanishad. Now in section 3 we had the story that we read last week. It says that it was Brahman who won the war for the gods. It was his, Brahman's, victory in which the gods took pride. They thought, this victory is ours indeed. The credit is ours indeed. Brahman, of course, became aware of that false pride of the gods and appeared before them for their benefit. Seeing that divine form, the gods did not know what it was. They said to Agni, fire, O Jataveda, the all-knowing God, find out who this divine being is. Agni replied, this will be done. Agni went to the divine being, who said, who are you? Agni replied, I am Agni, fire, no less than that. I am Jataveda, the knower of all creatures indeed. The divine being asked, what power is in you? You are such an important person. Agni replied, I can burn all this indeed, whatever there is in the world. The divine figure placed a straw before him, saying, burn it. Agni rushed forward and applied all his power, but he failed to burn it. He left the figure and said to the gods, I fail to find out who this divine being is. Then the gods said to Vayu, the wind, O Vayu, find out clearly who this divine being is. Vayu replied, this will be done. Vayu went to the divine being, who said, who are you? Vayu replied, I am Vayu, the wind. No less than that am I. I am Matarishva, one who moves in space indeed. The divine being asked, what power is there in you? You are such an important person. Vayu replied, I can blow away all of this indeed, whatever there is in this world. The divine figure placed a straw before him, saying, blow it away. Vayu rushed forward and applied all his power, but he failed to blow it away. He left the figure and said to the gods, I fail to find out who this divine being is. Then the gods said to Indra, O Madhava, find out clearly who this divine being is. Indra replied, this will be done. But when Indra approached the divine being, it disappeared. In that sky, where the divine figure had been, there was a woman wearing many ornaments. It was Uma Himavati. He came to her and said, who was that divine being? And this is the end of the third section of the Kena Upanishad. So now we come into the fourth section. So Uma Himavati, she replies, it was Brahman, she said. It was indeed Brahman's victory, which made you feel so elated. From that, Indra came to know that the divine being was Brahman. Because the gods Agni, Vayu, and Indra came in intimate contact with Brahman, and they were the first to know Brahman, they excel all other gods. Because Indra came in intimate contact with Brahman, and he was the first to identify it as Brahman, he excelled the other gods. So this is the story of how the gods had won their victory over the demons in their perpetual war with demons. And so they were very proud and very elated and, that they had won the victory. And so through this story, then Brahman showed them that it's through my power, through the power of Brahman, that you were able to win your victory. And this has been the theme throughout the Kena Upanishad, is by whose power do things happen, do things operate, do the senses work, does the mind work, and so forth.
And normally, like the gods, we tend to think that whatever victory we achieve is through our power, through my intelligence, through my ability, through my energy, and so forth. I was able to accomplish this. And most of us will go through life saying I accomplished this, and saying, oh, I failed this, and I messed this up. And like that, we think everything is happening because of us, because of our power. But behind every single individual is actually Brahman, and all power that we experience is actually coming from Brahman. And it's just flowing through the individual. As individuals, we're just instruments being used by Brahman. Yeah, it's like Swami Ramakrishna said, that if a pen was conscious, you would think, oh, I've written so many letters, I've done this and that, I've kept accounts, I've done all these things. But the pen is only an instrument in the hands of the one using it. And that's all we are. Is through us, God is manifesting, expressing himself in this world, and he uses different people for different purposes. There's only one power in the world, one life force, one product, and it's like electricity. You have electricity everywhere in the universe. It's a basic fact of nature. But in order to be able to use that electricity, first of all, you have to be able to connect to it. You have to have an outlet, right, where you can plug in. And this is all the spiritual practices and things that we do. We're trying to plug in to that kind of universal power, which is the source of everything, that universal life force. But now, when you plug into the electricity, or when you're connected with the life force, just as when you plug into the outlet, different instruments will do different things. An iron will iron clothes, a vacuum will sweep the carpet, radio will play music. Like that, the power is one, but one and the same, but the expression of that power is different with each individual. And so like each individual, as they approach that power, as they begin to use that life force, whether it's in a very small way, like we normally do, or deeper, we'll still remain individuals. We'll still have our own unique talents and abilities and capacities, and no two people will be alike. This is what I mentioned before. I think that when I first came to Chicago, I had this idea that, well, all holy people are alike. Now they're all pious and holy and humble and this and that. But I found every Swami, and I knew some really great Swamis back in the 70s, but every Swami is still got his own unique personality. Underlying it is the same truth. Like you hear Swami's lecture, they're all giving the same message, but each one does it in his own particular fashion. And so, in our normal state of existence, we have this sense of ego, of individuality, of this is me, this body, this personality, this mind, this is me. And this develops a sense of separation from God. And it's this ego, this sense that I am this particular person who's experiencing these different things. This ego is a fundamental problem, a cause of our ajnana, of our ignorance. Because of that, we say, we lose our sense that I am really one with God, that I'm really one with God, and it's His power that's flowing through me. And we take on the sense, no, it's my power, my ability, my accomplishments. And then you become like the prodigal son in the Bible. That, as you remember, that the prodigal son, he was the younger son of a rich farmer, and he became impatient. And he told his father, give me my share of the inheritance now. And so finally the father said, all right, here's your portion of the inheritance. And so then he went off to the big city, and for a long day he had endless party, endless friends, and enjoyed life until he started running out of money. And then all his friends gradually left him, and as you remember, he ended up, finally the only work he could find was to take care of a farmer's pigs. And his salary was that he got to eat whatever the pigs didn't eat. And so, like that, he got to thinking that even the lowest servant in my father's house, he lives much better than this. And so he said, let me go back to my father's house, let me beg forgiveness and offer to be, I'll just be a servant. But when he got back to the house, the father was overjoyed. And he told his other son to prepare a great feast. The one who was lost has returned. But this is the human condition. We're one with God, we're children with God, we're with God all the time. But then we say, no, let me go out and build my own empire. And so we come into this world and we bring with us a certain amount of treasure. We have a certain amount of abilities, of talents, of capacities that we bring into the world. And we think, oh, I'm so glorious, I'm so wonderful. And then we go to try to build our empire in the world. But as we go along, we eventually become like a branch that's cut off from the tree. And then remember Christ's parable that a branch is connected to the tree and it produces beautiful flowers and beautiful fruit and wonderful things. And then the tree starts thinking, oh, I'm so glorious, look at all my luscious fruit and everything else. And then it separates itself from the tree. And now what happens then is that once the branch is no longer connected to the tree, it starts to wither and dry up because it's not connected to the life force anymore. And this is what ordinary human beings, this is what happens. We separate ourselves from God. We say, I am this particular person here, and I'm going to go do what I want and accomplish this or that. And in the beginning, we have a lot of basic abilities of intelligence, of energy, of strength, health, all these things are there. But gradually, we eventually start to kind of wither up. And all these wonderful qualities and wonderful energy that we had in our youth gradually starts to disappear. And then and dry up, and then we find ourselves kind of old and worn out and unable to really have all these wonderful fruits and flowers and things anymore. And one of the things they say about spiritual life is that if you put your attention on trying to connect with God, trying to be aware of God, then you'll produce tremendous, wonderful things can happen to you. And this is why in the Swami Shardananda said that the final word in the spiritual life is surrender. But not my will, but thy will be done. As long as we say, I am this ego, I'm in charge here, then God is not functioning fully. But as we begin to surrender, as instead of saying, focusing our attention on, I am this particular ego, and I'm more important than anybody else, as you start to surrender all that and realize that behind me is this wonderful power, then gradually that power, that prana, that universal energy, it can gradually begin to function in your life, and what you begin to express in your life, instead of being just your own personal likes and dislikes and your worries and your fears and all these ordinary kind of human things, what you begin to express in your life is divine. And so this is the kind of main message of this Upanishad, is that behind all of our activities, behind all of our sense of existence, of mind, everything else, there's the one power there, only the one power. And when we recognize it, the more we recognize it, the more that power begins to become the reality of our existence, and then you'll see there's no limit to what can be accomplished by any person. There's a saying, I think, for Britain, that one person with God on his side is a majority. In other words, once you're connected to God, once you've made this surrender to God, and there's no limit to what can be accomplished by you. When you look at history usually think in terms of the great conquerors, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and all these people. And they made it into the history books mostly by killing a whole lot of people. They used to, I remember I had a Latin teacher in college, and they had the expression Pax Romana, the Roman peace. which is the time of Augustine, where you had the Roman Empire all over and this period of Roman peace. But he said the reason there was Roman peace is because he went in and they killed everybody, and then it was quiet and peaceful. And so, like that, we think of these great historical figures. But actually, the most powerful figures in history have been the great spiritual teachers, like Christ, like Buddha, like others, because not only did they make the history books, but for centuries, millions of people have guided their lives, been inspired by them, have guided their lives, and have shaped the morality and the civilization of the world. So they're not just a figure who accomplished some big deed, they are like have been a lasting influence. And any great teacher, great spiritual teacher, when they make that connection, so that the divinity that's within them, so that it begins to operate, becomes a great kind of light into the world, and opens up the whole kind of doors for other people to attain the divine. So this is so the gods had gotten their victory. They became very proud about it. So Brahman came and showed them that as soon as Brahman removes the power of Agni or Vayu, they can't do anything. And so in that way, the gods were humbled and they began to see things incorrectly. So here is and this is verse 4 now, in section 4. So here is an instruction on Brahman. It is like a flash of lightning or like a blink of an eye. These are two similes drawn from the phenomenal world. So just as lightning comes in a flash and removes darkness, so also self-knowledge comes all of a sudden and removes the darkness of ignorance. Similarly, creation and dissolution can take place in the mere blink of an eye of Brahman. This gives an idea of Brahman's power. The similes used in this verse are drawn from nature. So when we think of spiritual life, and spiritual kind of realization, we tend to think it's a long haul. Day after day after day, you're sitting, you're meditating, you're doing this, you're struggling with different obstacles and things. In that struggle, in that practice, you're making progress. You're slowly refining the mind, you're slowly becoming a better person, a little more spiritual person. But always as you struggle, it's like you're struggling up the side of a mountain, and now and then you fall back down. And again, you have to pick yourself up and start to struggle again. In this process, like I said, you become better, you become worse, you go to heaven, you go to higher realms, you maybe come back to earth again. So all this thing is kind of gradual and up and down. But now realization, the actual realization of Brahman, that comes in a flash. And either you have it or you don't have it. It's like either you're awake or you're asleep. When you're in a dream, when you're asleep and you're dreaming, then that dream is your world. And in that dream, you can be having a good dream, a pleasant dream, or you can be having a very frightening dream, and so forth. And in the dream, things are changing and going back and forth. But now when you wake up, though, it's a completely different reality. All the limitations, all the difficulties, all the fears and things that may have been there in the dream, they're just gone. Within the dream, you may not have been able to solve the problems. You may not have been able to get away from the tiger or whatever, but as soon as you wake up, then, everything is fine. But this is realization. It's not something that's gradual, but it is, with the actual knowledge of Brahman, the kind of the ultimate state, it comes in a flash. And like I said, when we're doing spiritual life and spiritual practices, we're struggling, we're trying to control the mind and things like this, and like I said, it's kind of ongoing battle. But when you attain realization, there's no struggle anymore, because being awake is what you are. When you wake up from a dream, you don't have to struggle usually to stay awake. And of course, at first, when you first wake up, well, there may be a little bit of struggle to kind of stay awake. And some people go back to sleep again. But once you're up and moving and all, then there's no struggle on your part to stay awake. You just are awake. And this is what realized souls are, is they're awake. And whether they do that meditation or read books or things like that is all kind of secondary. They're in a state of consciousness which is different than the ordinary consciousness, and they're aware of who they actually are. And that awareness will stay with them. So different experiences along the spiritual path, they can come. Some very exotic or very high experiences, all kinds of different things can come along the path, but realization, it comes in a flash, like a bolt of lightning. It's just suddenly there. At some point, when the person is going on, at some point it dawns on him, oh, this is it. And then he's got it. He's like, if a room is completely dark, and then you bring a lantern into it, the room is now lit. There's no gradual hiding in the dark or trying to escape the dark or anything. It's just, it's either light or it's dark. And same way, you're either realized or you're not realized. When you're not realized, though, you can have different levels of sensing the light, even though you haven't gotten the full light. And he mentions here that the whole creation of the universe can also take place in a flash like that, instantly. It's in Christian theology they call it the field. God says, "Let there be light," and there is light. He doesn't have to build a flashlight or do anything. He just says, "As soon as it's done." The whole universe done. And like that, if we think in terms of our say mental creation, if we want to picture a house, we just picture it and it's there. At the physical level, we have to go out and build it. Then we have to get wood and bricks and everything else and spend a long time building it. But at the mental level, whatever we think, it's just there. And so God's creative power is like that. It's not something that he has to kind of struggle with or anything at all, including this whole complete universe. You can just picture a flash like that and it is done. So the next verse says, "Now here is an instruction on Brahma. That relates to the mind of the individual itself. It is the mind that reaches, as it were, that Brahman, and by which the aspirant constantly reflects upon that Brahman. This is the way that he should direct his mind." So as far as the individual self is concerned, the mind is the best example of the power of Brahman. How is the mind powerful? This mind goes towards Brahman. He tries to reach Brahman. Though difficult, it still tries to grasp and understand Brahman. It can meditate on Brahman as the self. But this power of the mind also comes from Brahman. The power of lightning comes from Brahman, and also the power of the mind. If we are not able to think of Brahman, it is because our minds are not pure and there is too much ego in us. But some people have pure minds and great willpower, sankalpa. So Sri Ramakrishna has such a mind free from ego. Such a mind is very powerful. It is near Brahman itself. So the Upanishad gives this example from the experience of the individual self, the Adhyatma. So our main instruments for experiencing the world and experiencing ourselves are the body and particularly the mind. And normally said, most of us, that mind is centered on the idea of ego, that I am this particular person here. And that particular person is generally based upon the body, the mind, the personality, our experiences, and so forth. But that same mind is actually, if we stop thinking in terms of ego, in other words, if you stop experiencing things in terms primarily of, well, what's happening to me, what am I getting, what am I accomplishing, if we kind of detach ourselves, kind of impersonalize our attitude, then that mind gradually becomes less and less ego and more of the underlying consciousness, which is its real nature. It's like I mentioned before that normally you have this whole vast universe, billions of stars, billions of galaxies, all kinds of life and things, but yet for 99% of us, all of our attention is on what's happening to me. And this is all I concern. What did I have for lunch? Was it good or was it bad? Does this person like me? Doesn't? And you have a whole vast universe that we're totally unaware of or unconcerned with. Now, as you begin to detach from being ego, from thinking always in terms of what am I getting, what's happening to me, what's going on, then you gradually open up and begin to become aware of the eternity, the infinity of things, the glory of things. And it's this is the whole idea. We usually read a section of a book sometime back about how a chicken sends egg. It's surrounded on all sides by darkness, and that's its whole world. It doesn't know anything else. But then it gets an urge and it starts pecking at the egg. And gradually some light begins to come through. And eventually when it pecks enough, it just breaks through the egg and it discovers this whole barnyard is there, full of all kinds of other animals, all kinds of wonderful things, things to play and so forth. And this is like the human condition. Normally we're confined within our particular mind, our particular personality, our particular experience. And this is all we are. Like for most of us right now, we're in this room and that's all we know. But as you begin to break through this kind of and what this ego is actually it's like a network of thought. That we're always saying me, and we're building kind of continual thoughts around ourselves, and then these thoughts, they shape our experience. If we're always thinking bad thoughts, we have very bad experiences. If we're always thinking good thoughts, we have very good experiences. But deeper than that is the kind of spiritual reality of things. And so, and when you start doing like a mantra or meditation, things like you're gradually trying to eliminate all these personal thoughts, the thoughts focused on I, me, and mine, and begin to allow the consciousness, which is the reality of who we are, to kind of break through that network. So our experience is a little bit like a caterpillar. Caterpillar is actually like a little worm on the ground. Then it builds a cocoon around itself. And for some time it's just there in the cocoon. Then it comes out. Eventually it breaks out of the cocoon and it becomes a butterfly and it flies off. So like we're like souls, we've built this human cocoon around ourselves, and through this cocoon we're getting some experience, some gradual development in things. But eventually a point comes where you want to break out of the cocoon, and then you become the butterfly and you flow, fly freely through space. Okay, so then verse 6 says, that Brahman is known for certain as the adorable one. Therefore it should be worshipped as the adorable one, Tadvanam. All creatures worship him. Indeed, who knows Brahman thus? So all that can be said about Brahman is that it is adorable, Tadvanam. It is adorable because it is the source of everything. It is adorable. So it should be adored. That is all. No further reason can be given. Now, if someone knows this Brahman as his own, that person becomes adorable to all. Everyone worships a person who is known Brahman. If anyone among us knows his own identity, knows himself as Brahman, we love him and worship him. That person is the ideal, and we try to follow him. Now, it's important to remember that Brahman is known for certain as the adorable one. And when we think about Brahman, Satchidananda, source of the universe, it's like an abstract kind of philosophical principle. If we think of God as a mother or as a father or somebody, we can relate to that. I mean, we can feel kind of a love and admiration. But often Brahman is just kind of a vague, kind of metaphysical idea that is hard to really feel a sense of relationship with. But it's important to remember that Brahman, though, is actually the most adorable thing in the universe. It's also the most, the relation between us and Brahman, between the soul and Brahman, is the most intimate relationship in the universe. That what we experience through human love is just a very, very faint shadow of the relationship, the intensity of the relationship between us and Brahman. You remember when Swami Vivekananda, he came to Sri Ramakrishna, and he said, "Sir, have you seen God?" And Sri Ramakrishna said, "Yes, I see God just as clearly as I see you, only much more intimately." And this is anybody who's developed some sense of the presence of God, begins to feel that in that presence, in that relationship, there's kind of a complete fulfillment. You know, Swami Sarvagatananda from Boston, they describe Brahman as Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss. But he used to say all the time that Ananda, bliss, means love. And that's it. We can't imagine the love that's there until you realize your connection with the oneness of things. And it's not only love for some, your own kind of personal deity, but ultimately it becomes love for everything, because it is everything. And because Brahman, because this ultimate Brahman is your own true self, there's no closer relationship than that. Like I said, the human relationships, we can never approach anything near the closeness and the love that exists between God and the soul. It's like the gopis at Vrindavan, that represents like the relationship between the soul and God, that tremendous yearning that comes. Now, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that God is like a giant magnet, but and we're like iron filings. He said, because we're covered with dirt and rust and things, the filings, they don't feel the pull of the magnet. But as soon as the filings become clean, and the rust removed and things, then they feel the attraction. And this you'll find in the lives of the different saints and mystics, is how much intense attraction they had towards God. Because they reached that point of purity, of purifying the mind, where they could feel that draw. And then it just pulls them in deeper and deeper. So we shouldn't think just in Brahman, just in kind of metaphysical terms. That actually is the most adorable. So the disciple said, "O teacher, please tell me the teachings of the Upanishad." And the teacher says that the message of the Upanishad has already been given to you. I have told you all about the Upanishad. Indeed, that concerns Brahman. So now the disciple says, please tell us what the message of the Upanishads is. What he means to say is that the teacher has so far only talked about Brahman, about the self. Now he wants to know from the teacher if there's any further message of the Upanishads. And the teacher replies, I've already given you the knowledge that the Upanishad offers. I have told you about Brahman and what Brahman is like. The Upanishads always talk about Brahman, nothing but Brahman. So perhaps the disciple had in mind questions relating to practices. It is true, the teacher had talked to him about Brahman, but was that all? Was not the Upanishad require some action? So in this Upanishad and in all the Upanishads, basically all they were talking about is Brahman, is God. In various ways, they use various stories and various ways to talk about it. And it's always the same basic truth, that the expression is that behind everything there's one ultimate reality. That reality is the self of our own being, is who we really are, and also is the self of the source of the whole universe. And so, in one way or another, this is what all the Upanishads are telling us. That they're telling us that this thing, this wonderful, infinite, divine reality, is our own real self. It's who we really are. It's what we really are, and trying to bring that to us. As Kena Upanishad said, we're not the eyes. We're the thing that gives the power to the eyes. And as it repeats over and over, but not the sense world that people worship. We look out through our senses and we experience the world out there, but that's not what Brahman is. Brahman is the consciousness that's underlying the whole world, which gives the eyes the power to see, the ears the power to hear, and so forth. It's like if you may have perfectly functioning eyes and ears and so on, but if you're asleep or if you're unconscious, they're not functioning. You're not aware of the world at all. But when consciousness is connected to that, then you see and hear and so forth. The thing is that normally, when consciousness gets connected with that, then we say, well, this experience is what I'm seeing and hearing. This experience is me. This is what I am. Forget it. The consciousness is actually something different. Then we come to verse 8. It says that austerity, self-restraint, and spiritual practice form the foundation of self-knowledge. The Vedas are its limbs, and truth is its abode. So the Upanishad says that in order to know Brahman, we must practice austerity, self-restraint, and other spiritual disciplines. These are the petition, the foundation of spiritual knowledge. Then the Vedas are the various limbs of self-knowledge, because the study of the Vedas helps to clear our doubts. All these self-restraint, selfless work, and study of the scriptures are steps leading to chitta shuddhi, or purification of mind. When ego consciousness has dissolved and the mind has become pure, one attains self-knowledge. Most important than however is truth. As the Upanishad said, truth is the very abode of self-knowledge. It is above everything else. You may have self-restraint or scholarship, but without truth you cannot attain self-knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna once said, I offered everything to the Divine Mother, but I could not give up truth. But what exactly is truth? Truth consists of Brahma in Vanvana Kayana in Akutuya. That is to say, straightforwardness, honesty, and sincerity in thought, speech, and action constitute truth. There must be a consistency and harmony between what we think and what we say, and between what we say and what we do. Truthfulness, according to Sri Ramakrishna, is the best spiritual practice for this age. Our thought, speech, and action, he used to say, should be in complete accord with each other. In fact, a completely honest person cannot deviate from truth. Everything he says comes true. Sri Ramakrishna himself was the best exemplar of this. If he said he would do something, he would do it in spite of any obstacle. He was very strict with others on this point also. If a person said that he would do something, then not do it, or if someone even said something in fun that was not correct, he would feel annoyed. Ordinarily, people say honesty is the best policy, but that was not enough for Gandhiji. He used to say honesty is the only policy. So what it was meant by truth, truth is what is. when we abandon that truth, that's taking our stand in truth, all kinds of imaginations come into the mind, all kinds of thoughts and things like that, and pretty soon we don't know what we are. And this I mentioned before, I think back in meditation class, is many people, they don't know who they are. Their mind is so full of their imaginations and what they're trying to, personality, the self-image they're trying to create and project onto the world, and all these things, that they simply, and all the different opinions and things, that ideas that come from other people, that they just don't know who they are. And it creates a lot of psychological problems. But now, as a person becomes spiritual, as he begins to take his stand just on truth, and just on what he is, he also tends to become simple and tends to find himself on solid ground. Instead of always this turmoil of trying to make good impressions on people or trying to do this or that, it's just, you begin to stand on just solid ground. And I remember this is probably the first thing, one of the first things I experienced when I came to Chicago back in '73, Swami Upanishad. It's just a sense of suddenly, there's a sense of solidity about who you are, and solidity about, if this is true, then nothing else matters. This is what it is. And the same thing, the same principle, is an important principle in Zen, where they had the idea of suchness. Suchness means seeing things as they are, not as we react to them, not as we judge them, not saying this is good and this is bad, or I like this and I don't like this, but just saying what they are. Then you start to enter into a different state of consciousness, where instead of constantly reacting to the scene in front of you in terms of I like it or I don't like it, or with fear or with anxiety or worry, as you just sit back and say, this is, just let things be what they are, without judgment, then you'll see gradually the world starts to get transformed. And it's like, if you don't like a person, it's very difficult to see anything good about that person. But I mentioned before, the person you don't like, the person you can't stand at all, is somebody else's best friend. So there must be something good about it that we're not aware of. But now when we get back from our attitude that, oh, I really hate this person, or I really like this person, when we step back, we begin to see things simply as they are, and then gradually become aware of the underlying divinity that's there. And this then, in other words, our likes or dislikes, our judgments, these are distorting what's there. We're saying, oh, this thing is bad, this thing is good, this thing is enjoyable, this thing isn't. And like that, we're distorting simply what is just simply there. And so by taking your stand in truth, I am what I am. Papa used to say that, I am what I am. But anyway, taking our stand in truth, we gradually begin to find our whole life experience, all the turmoil and worries and fears and all these anxieties, everything starts to drop away, and you just okay, things aren't what they are. I am what I am, and then you begin to live in kind of harmony. Otherwise, it's the ego, always battling, saying always, oh, that's a good person, that's a bad person, and like that, always distorting what was actually there. And when you begin to see what's actually there, then it's the divinity is starting to unfold. So it's the truth. Taking a firm stand on truth has tremendous kind of psychological value, because it gives you a strong foundation for who you are and what you are and what's going on. And then all of our kind of psychological problems tend to come from reactions, the way we react to things. And something happens in childhood, it destroys our self-confidence. We say, and we go through life then, kind of crippled by that. But actually, our real nature is divine being. And so, nothing can, and this is what Swami Vivekananda said that one of the sure signs of spiritual growth and development is abhyaya, fearlessness. As long as we're fearing things, We're operating from ego perspective and the ignorance perspective. But when we are a little bit in touch with our real nature, then God has said, well, what's the fear? Who can harm me? What can harm me? So now I think we're at the very last verse now, verse 9. It says, he who knows Brahman thus overcomes all ignorance and is firmly established in the state of eternal bliss. Indeed, he is firmly established. So when a person knows Brahman thus, that is, when he knows Brahman as enunciated in this Upanishad, he attains self-knowledge. He then overcomes all ignorance and becomes free from the cycle of birth and death. As it is, we are all caught up in this cycle of birth and death. We are born, and then we die, and then we are born again. Birth and death follow each other in a cycle. But when we realize ourselves and know our true nature, when we know who we are, we attain liberation, moksha or mukti. Out of ignorance, we identify ourselves with our sense experiences, and that is why we suffer. But when we know that we are not the body and not the senses, that we are beyond the senses, beyond everything, then we do not come back to this world again. We break this cycle of birth and death and become free. The word svarga, heaven, in this verse is not the heaven we ordinarily think of. That heaven is not permanent. Here the word svarga means the state of unmixed joy and happiness. The unvarying state of bliss that stems from the consciousness of being one with Brahman. This is the highest goal one can wish for. And so here is the fourth section of the Kena Upanishad. So that brings us to the end of the book. Any question? End of the Upanishad? Then actually, we are, as I think I mentioned last week, that we are going on winter break, starting from December 1st up until April 1st. The Tuesday and Friday classes are suspended for winter break, and but Sunday class will still go on. We'll have all the other pujas and arti, everything else, center will be open still, but just the Friday and Tuesday classes will be suspended between December 1st and April 1st. Now, since we've finished the book now, and since next Friday is Thanksgiving weekend, basically we'll stop now. So there's no class next Friday, and then after that, everything is on winter break until we pick it up again. Okay, so right now, Swami's in Dallas. He'll get back tomorrow night, and he'll do the Sunday service as usual. So, and then I think our next puja is going to be Holy Mother's Puja on December 13th. So that will be next. And then those are about the only things coming up. So any questions? Om Asatoma Sadyamana Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Viturvam Amritam Gavaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. Om peace, peace,